Almost 28 minutes after 10 o'clock, you're watching ENC. I'm Dan Moyane, and on today's issue, because Women's Month is drawing to a close, we've decided to discuss and take a look at women in leadership, asking questions like what should be done to accelerate women's economic empowerment and meaningful participation in organizational leadership. My panel list this morning, Commission for Employment Equity Commissioner, that's Dr. Annelie Gildenhuys, UCT Council Chairperson Babalwa Ngonyama, youngest MPL in the Gauteng Legislature, Fasiha Hassan, and scientist and businesswoman Dineo, Leoma, very successful entrepreneur. I just want to read something to kick off this next segment of our discussion. If you can just bear with me. This being Women's Month, it is almost as if employers do not hear the plight of women that we are here. We want our place at the table. We are capable. We are not asking of you to give us something that we should not have access to. We say, recognize us, recognize our skills, and recognize what we bring to the party. These are the words, Dr. Gildenhuys, of your chairperson, Tabea Kabinde, the chairperson of the Commission for Employment Equity. So we're not asking for something that we do not have. Dineo, skills is something that in this quote by Ms. Kabinde comes out that we have the skills, recognize them. You seem to have found some formula that works. Can you share just with our viewers very quickly at a high level? Because to me, it comes across like you are a pocket of excellence when it comes to the involvement of women in leadership position in your company, K Biotechnology.
Sure, absolutely. So for us, it really starts at the recruitment stage. We've been in several instances where a man and a woman are competing for the same position. When you look on their CV, they have the credentials, they have the skills in the background. But perhaps in an interview stage, the confidence perhaps doesn't show up as well as it would with a man. So we have to obviously take that back seat and say, and really be objective and say, okay, is this person really capable of doing the job? Yes or no? And 9 out of 10 times, the woman is definitely capable, but perhaps she didn't, demonstrate that in the interview process. And that's why also with our recruitment process, we always ask, what are the things that you would like us to develop you in? So, and a lot of the times it's usually coming down to confidence, leadership, as well as, public speaking, just so that they are more confident when they're speaking out. So these are the things that we recognize and say, okay, hey, here is a woman who's completely capable. Yes, perhaps she might have some development skills in terms of confidence, but this is something that can definitely be changed. Let's recruit her and support her in terms of her self-development to make sure that she's able to fully thrive in that organization. So from the recruitment stage, this is something that we take very seriously. And even within our organization, we take it quite seriously to give women opportunities to lead divisions. We also give them opportunities to, just get into the swing of talking and, sharing their thoughts and their ideas of certain things involving our organization. So I think it really just also boils down to giving women the opportunity.
Giving them the opportunity. Is that a culture thing, Ms. Ngonyama? You were talking earlier about one of the factors that organizational culture is important in affording women those opportunities to be empowered and rise to the top echelons of organizations.
Culture is definitely important. You need to level the playing field because the corporate culture generally, as I mentioned, it's more skewed towards being muscular. And as a leader, and that you understand what that means for a woman to come in, and how do you then make it easier for a person who is not male to come into your business. So, for example, a few things that we can do. It starts from the interviews. Be clear as to what you want, because sometimes we are very fuzzy on what we want, and then we depend on people walking into our doors and how impressive they are, and that's when that subjectivity comes in. Look at whether this person can add value into my life. And you find that a lot of women actually can do that. They can add way more value, especially if you are open-minded to it. and then level, therefore, the playing field and make it easier for them.
Yeah, is it a question of that we are not dealing with necessarily overt sexism, but more subtle forms of discrimination?
And people are very smart today. You know, they won't do things that would obviously raise the eyebrows. You know, they would smartly undermine a woman. They would smartly attack their dignity and make a woman feel small. And as a leader, it's important for you to be able to see those things and you do not condone them. You know, it becomes very important that you make it clear that this is not the culture I aspire to. And if it comes to a push, you release those people who do not fit into your culture. Otherwise, we do find that it is very difficult to bring in women when the leaders themselves are toxic. You know, when you have leaders that are insecure, you know, we want great leaders in our spaces, then it will be much easier to bring in other competent women.
Fasiha, what's the role of education in this whole equation? I'm asking this because, I mean, when you were sworn in into the MPL in Gauteng after the 2019 elections, you spoke about your focus will continue to be rooted in education and youth unemployment issues as one of those. I'm asking about education and skills because everywhere you look and say, sometimes people will use that. And listening to Dineo during recruitment and when they interview a candidate for their company, they'll find that the female candidate is as equally qualified as the male, but she doesn't come across as confidently as she should.
No, it's an important question, Bradan, and I think you need to look at the formal education stream and the informal education stream. So formal education stream, I think Dineo was spoken to it, often women are very much well qualified, very much able to do the job. The problem often comes in with inherent biases and also around how we sort of view women in the workplace, right? I've been to job interviews where I've been asked, when am I going to start a family? When am I going to get married? And the whole point of asking me that was to understand when I'm going to be, I suppose, on maternity leave. But no man gets asked that question. No man has to go through the kinds of barriers or the hoops that we have to go through. So I think that's one thing. But in terms of this informal education, it's about building the confidence of women. And it doesn't just happen at a university level. It can't just happen before they're applying for jobs. It needs to happen from a basic education level, from even as early as an ECD. You know, when your kid's in preschool or in creche, we need to encourage women to be more confident in themselves, but also to trust themselves, right? And to believe that they are worthy of more than that. Because how often have we seen studies in which women don't apply for jobs that they're very well qualified for and would do an excellent job in, but we see men who are not as well qualified go for it, you know, because of that sort of element. And the other thing also we see is women who don't necessarily have the confidence to negotiate better salaries or negotiate better opportunities or negotiate for better promotions earlier on. So for me, it's not just about having the degree or not just about having that formal education. It's that intangible thing. And I think Babalwa also spoke about this, the culture of it. So it's holistic. The liberation of women and the empowerment of women is not just going to happen because we hand someone a degree. It's beyond that.
Now, Dr. Gildenhuys, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. And as you said, yeah, and as we've seen with the 20th report, there's not much movement. When you're getting these reports, as you tally them and you analyze them from a commission perspective, what are the reasons that sort of come out from these organizations that say that why we don't have women at the top level?
Yeah, some people change because they see the light and others because they see the heat. Without radical transformation, these businesses can't stay intact. But when we have sector engagements, we still hear the old debates that the skills aren't available. And I've been hearing them now for over 20 years, is that they're just not there or we can't find them and not just ready. So the barriers are still incumbency, where people are, the sort of boys club is still a network in there. And we've heard heard of the panelists here today is that I think people are able and they are willing. They are very skilled women, able and willing, but not allowed. And what we are seeing is that people are creating their own table if there's not a place at the table. So, and it's interesting that if you analyze the report, you would also see a complete stratification from white women would then be preferred if there is a woman to be promoted, and then Indian, and the last group is there. So again, the absolute looking at challenging
so the black women will be at the bottom of the scale.
That's correct.
So when we come back...
So it's almost a triple jeopardy.
Yes, which is what Babalwa spoke to, class, race, and gender. When we come back, we're heading into the last part of our discussion shortly after the break. We're just going to focus, I just want us to focus on what do you think will be the key things, the key levers that can help? How do we reimagine a future where we no longer have these conversations? Stay with us.